Are you an entrepreneur, marketer, or business owner outside the USA and looking for a way in? Good news, you 100% can tackle the American market as a non-US resident and build a 7-figure business. Here's how. So a lot of merchants rely on Stripe and PayPal when they're non-American in order to be able to sell to Americans. But if you are considered a high-risk business, for example, if you're drop shipping or if you're selling supplements or if you're doing any type of crypto offer, it's possible that Stripe does not allow you to operate, or worse, that they've shut you down and now you're out of options. So if you're selling mainly to Americans, but you're not actually a resident of the US, it is very difficult to get payment processing if, Stripe doesn't like your business type or PayPal doesn't like your business type. And also Stripe and PayPal do have some limitations as to some countries that they do not accept as well, and they're not willing to support it. If it is from Pakistan, so everybody who says have some barriers, I'm sure that Ariba has had that at barriers being from Pakistan and trying to break into the US markets and so forth. So I am very excited to talk with Ariba today about also business and some challenges that she's having with conversions and how to really increase the take rate on her checkout page. Obviously, you're in Pakistan and you're working a lot with Americans and so forth. Did you have any challenges, getting work in the States or proving yourself? If you're not American, I feel like it's a little bit harder for you to kind of break through. So I'm just curious to know your experience and how you actually broke through the American market.
That's a good question. There are definitely, a lot of challenges because first you're not a native English speaker. And there are a lot of little nuances in a language that you need to know. And especially you're writing direct response copy, you're running offers on cold traffic. So I would say the way I came over it was just by I think reading a lot of different offers, just being more observant. And I would say joining different masterminds definitely helps a lot. When you are around people who are constantly leveling up, it does help you massively. Instead of, just lurking in free groups, which does not mean that free groups do not provide values. They do provide values, but being around a certain group of people, who have paid a certain amount to be in a particular setting, I feel like that is more impactful. And that is where I have learned the most.
Oh, that's amazing. Anytime you're tagged as a foreign transaction, you're always running into a risk of the customer's bank declining. You're getting a declined transaction, but do you know why it's declining?
So basically, if I go to decline reason, most common are stuff do not honor. And if we click on apply, we have 308 results there.
308 pages. Wow, that's insane. That is over how much time? Is this for the year? Is this for the month?
No, this is for, I would say we started this account in August. So I would say past 6 months. Yeah.
If we go kind of back into the data, how many approved transactions versus decline? What is your approval ratio right now in total, not just for do not honors?
Yeah. So in total, we have total transactions were 7,154. Okay. Out of that, 4,186 were approved and 2,516 failed.
Guys, this is 35% of transactions are getting declined. Yeah. So Ariba, you're doing a great job getting the people to want to buy your product, but unfortunately 35% of them can't. So I do want to point out, on Stripe and any processor that you're using, all processors give you this information, because I get a lot of questions and people say, oh, I don't know, they're just declined. No, there are reasons for the declines, and it's important to know the reasons, because then you can attack each one and try to fix all the different things. So I think the easiest thing would be to go with the easiest ones, the ones that we can actually quickly put a few things in place. It's just sometimes banks call it different things internally, but do not honor, generic decline. And if we go a little bit lower, oh man, there's a lot here. Okay. Service not allowed, transaction not allowed. Those all kind of mean the same thing. What it means is the customer's bank saying no. That's as general as it can get, in the sense of there's a various amount of reasons. It could be that it falls outside of the customer's purchasing habits, meaning they usually don't buy digital products. And how they know it's a digital product is because in your settings in Stripe, you've told Stripe what kind of business you are.
Yeah.
And they will go back and tell the customer's bank, this is a digital product, or this is a high risk product, whatever it is. And then what happens there is that they're like, oh, this customer's never bought anything like this. No, thank you. We're not doing this. What are your biggest markets outside of the US? Like, what are your biggest
outside of the US, we have the usual Canada, we have UK, and then we have Pakistan, India, Bangladesh.
Okay. And I see here one thing that I see that's interesting. It all says US dollars. Do you charge everybody in US dollars?
Yes, everyone gets charged in US dollars.
Okay. So one thing that's going to be an easy fix in the sense of like something that you can do that could increase your conversions probably overnight by a couple of percent is charge in the native currency. And it's just a flag in Stripe. It's called dynamic currency conversion, DCC it's called. And what that does is that it converts whatever amount that you've put in US dollars into, let's say, Canadian dollars or into GBPs or in India, their currency and so forth. And it charges them in their native currency. But what it does is that you get it in US dollars. So unfortunately, you kind of suffer a little bit from the FX because they'll charge like 1% for the FX on you, like it's the merchant cost. But what that's going to do is when the customer's bank is balancing risk, one thing they don't like is foreign currency. Yeah. Because foreign currency, let's say I buy something from you that's $21.79, like I see that price point on there, US dollars. I'm Canadian. So that $21.79 is going to be $30 for me. I may, because there's just a lot of confusion and like you see dollar sign can mean Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, US dollar, can mean a lot of things. Banks are like, ugh, now because of people complaining, chargeback rates really going up, disputes going up, they're like, no, we want you to charge local currency. They won't tell you that, but they'll say, we're not accepting anybody that's not charging in Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
Or we're not accepting. So right away, you can add DCC onto your card. Like I said, it sucks for you. You're going to get an extra fee there from the FX, but you'll be charging the customer the native currency. You'll still be getting, $21.79 equivalent minus an extra fee. And you'll be seeing a higher success rate. Also, when a customer disputes a transaction or wants a refund, if they're subject to FX, like if you're charging them in US dollars, the FX rate changes. So you may refund them $21.79 US, but they were charged, let's say $30 Canadian. But then because of the FX, they only get 27 back. You'll get them to complain again because they're like, where's my $3? And so there's no way to control that because FX changes, foreign exchange. So charging in the native currency will really help solve a lot of those problems, and it will increase conversions and likely decrease chargebacks and disputes. Let's look at again the listing of the declines. Sure. Okay, so I see expired card. Okay, so can I assume that the expired cards are for recurring transactions?
They are for recurring transactions, but sometimes they're just like for the main thing as well, like for the main front end.
So on your checkout page, you allow people to put an expired card?
I don't think so. We have a filter to ask them not to do it.
Okay. So payment processing works with an algorithm. So there's a couple of things that are very important for people to be doing on their checkout page, like not sending obviously bad transactions, bad meaning transactions that we know are going to decline to their payment processor. Because the more bad transactions that you send, when I say bad, I mean things that are obviously not going to get approved, then the more likely it is that you're going to ruin that algorithm of your approvals, right? Because obviously, you're a small merchant, but over time, there's like almost like a range that is set for you. Like, oh, she usually gets like 70% approval. Or if a particular bank sees a lot of transactions coming from you, let's say you're geo-targeting Chicago for your ads or whatever, and you're getting a lot of like clients in clusters that may be banking at the same place, the customer's bank sees transactions coming in from you. And if they feel like you're sending them bad transactions, like transactions that are declining mainly, they might put you on a restricted list. So sometimes these big banks like Bank of America, not the whole Bank of America, but like Bank of America, Chicago, this location, they have algorithms to see, merchant IDs and approvals and chargeback rates per merchant. And if they see that you're sending them a lot of transactions like, hey, this card's expired, why is this merchant even sending this? There's no need for you to send that. So there should be an automatic, on your checkout page, like if somebody doesn't put the current month, it's just you shouldn't even let them proceed. There's no
yeah.
reason for it, right? It's going to be declined. Now, on the subscription side of things, there's something called Visa Account Updater and MasterCard Account Updater. Have you heard of that feature?
Nope.
Okay. So there is a feature in Stripe and with pretty much every processor in the US, and most international processors are offering this as well. It's called Visa Account Updater and MasterCard Account Updater. Two separate services, one obviously offered by Visa, one offered by MasterCard. You turn these on. It's not automatically turned on because there's a fee for this, but I guarantee you there's not any merchant that I've ever turned it on for that said, I've lost money with this, like never.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer. You turn it on, and what it does is that at the end of the month, it sees all the cards that are expiring. It takes those cards and it goes back to the issuer, the customer's bank, and says, hey, this is an active subscription that we have. We see the cards expiring. Can you please give us the new card details? Obviously in code. They're not actually calling or anything, but they're sending this file. And then the customer's bank says, oh, yes, a new card has been issued. Here's the new number, or here's the new expiry date, and everything else remains the same. And then that gets automatically updated and your subscription just keeps going. It literally adds 3 to 5% extra in your subscription. Another thing that you can do, like we want to try to avoid sending transactions, as I said earlier, that are not good transactions or like bad transactions. So we want to avoid sending expired cards. That's number one. That's easy. You can just, block it if the calendar is not current. Number two, there's something called the Luhn algorithm, which is LUHN. And that's how credit card numbers are built. The Luhn algorithm is essentially something that spits out different combinations of numbers, and that's how credit card numbers are created. That's why there's no credit card number that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It doesn't work like that. They're all like this random algorithm. And what you can do on your checkout page very simply is to have the card number run against the Luhn algorithm. And if it doesn't match, then you just don't process the order because it's not going to be approved anyway, right? A lot of processors charge for failed or declined transactions. Most do. Even with Stripe, you get charged 30 cents every single time, even if it's declined. So, and with your own merchant account, you don't get charged the percentage, like the 2.9 or whatever you're paying, but you do pay a transaction fee. So if you have somebody try 15 times with a card, you're paying for a transaction that makes absolutely no sense for you to be paying for, right? Because the card number is incorrect. So now I think the easiest thing, or everybody has on their mind, is the do not honor
code. Yeah.
People are trying, and you see somebody's trying like 6 or 7 times. This guy's just lost you money, right? Like there's no need for you to even, continue this, right?
Continue that.
And where I see subscription update in there, you see incorrect number subscription update, that would be fixed by VAU MAU, because this is somebody who's already bought and then maybe changed their card because they were frauded or whatever the case is. So Visa Account Updater would go back and get the new number and get it on. Obviously, unless they've declared that your transaction is fraud, then no. But other than that, it would work. So the do not honor, generic declines, and then we said there was another one there, transaction not allowed. That is all kind of the same thing, right? You would also see issuing bank decline, just the word decline. That just means the customer's bank is saying no. So there's a couple of things that you want to do here is you want to inform, if possible, to your customer that their bank has said no. So there's one thing that happens there is that some customers, when they really want to buy something, they will call their bank or contact their bank and advise them that, hey, I tried to buy this and I wasn't allowed, and then they'll come back and buy it. So there's that's kind of like the easiest thing to do, is just to say to the customer, whenever you get these decline messages, the pop-up should be, your bank has not allowed this transaction. Obviously you're a marketer, you can say it a bit better, but just to tell them basically that your bank, it seems like you have funds, but your bank's not allowing this for some reason. So call them. If the customer calls and says, hey, I want this, they'll let it go through. That their algorithms will go through. Now, another thing that I see with the do not honors and the transaction not allowed is for your transactions that are outside of the US specifically, specifically European, UK transactions, there is something called 3DS that is mandatory for European and UK transactions. So 3DS is like 2FA for credit card transactions. Now, if you have not enabled 3DS for your European transactions in Stripe, they will get declined. And you will get these messages: do not honor, transaction not allowed, just simple decline. So do you know if you have 3DS activated for your European transactions?
I don't think so. No, we don't have that.
Okay. So it would be important. So you would have two options. My preferred option would be to have another Stripe account for European sales and activate 3DS on that and let it run on its own, and then have this Stripe account work on everything other than Europe. Stripe says that you could turn it on per region. I'm not confident it works that well when you turn it on regionally. But again, it's a matter of testing. You can turn, these are settings and features you can turn on and off. Like, it's not going to be super problematic with Stripe if you turn on 3DS and then turn it off. But make sure when you do turn it on that you do not turn it on for US transactions, because then you'll get a whole bunch of problems there, and your conversions are going to take a nosedive, right? Another thing that you can do that Stripe offers is for your US transactions, when you get it for a US IP, this is just kind of like a long shot, but Stripe offers ACH. And a lot of customers right now in the US are credit strapped. They're like up to here with their credit. And a lot of stores just accept credit card, whereas ACH is a very viable solution and a way that you can still do subscriptions. You can still, you can still collect your money just the same, and you'll pay like almost nothing. I think it's under 1% transaction fee.
Wow.
And there's a plugin that works with Stripe specifically that's called Plaid. And it works actually with most ACH platforms, Plaid, and it gets you same day settlement. It gets you the information right away if the bank account is good and you're able to collect, and it can do subscriptions. So it works very similarly to credit cards, and you literally just add it to your cart. What I have some merchants do is when a customer in the US declines, there's just like a, hey, do you want to pay by ACH instead? So, I mean, obviously your approval ratio, once you get somebody into your cart and they want to buy, getting a declined transaction really fucking stinks. It's just terrible. And it's just, you did everything you had to do to sell them, but then their credit card or their payment method fails. So sometimes obviously the person has no money, they're not able to buy, but there are other times where the customer's bank just says no, even though they have money and so forth. And this happens more often when you have what we call a cross-border merchant account. What that is, for example, if they have a Canadian company and they're selling mainly to Americans, so they're processors in Canada and they're charging US cards, that's considered a cross-border transaction. Same thing if you have a European merchant account and you're charging Americans. So first things first is check the decline messages, within your gateway. Log into your gateway and see why the transactions are being declined, and make sure there's no like errors, integration stuff, or tech stuff that you can fix. Next, look at your declines or your approvals per traffic source. If it kind of always is about the same, then obviously traffic sources are not an issue. But if, for example, YouTube traffic, you're getting an approval ratio of 70%, but then Facebook, you're getting 85%, obviously the quality of the traffic is, has to come into account. You have to kind of take some steps there to see what you can do to bring the other sources of traffic up to what you're expecting. If these two things kind of fail, then your third thing is obviously, and this is something that you have to keep in mind, when you have a non-US merchant account and you're charging Americans, your approval ratio will always be lower. The main reason for it is debit cards. US debit cards do not convert very well with non-US processors. When you're selling consumer products, supplements and so forth, different things, under a couple of $100, a lot of people use their, Visa debit or MasterCard debit or whatever the case is. And what happens there is the customer's bank just doesn't want to approve non-domestic or non-local non-US transactions. Debit cards have a different risk profile than credit cards. So the customer's bank is just less willing to take a risk on a foreign transaction. It's just the way it is. Typically the lower kind of consumer products and the lower your price point, the more debit people use, and that, you're kind of running into that issue a little bit more often. Hope this was informative. And as usual, I have tons of content about how-tos and what you can do to convert and so forth. So please subscribe, share, and like this episode. And I look forward to seeing you next week.